Hi, everybody. This is Lisa Haven, and have I got a topic for you? Government experimenting on the masses, 100% proof. Now, if you thought the government was your friend and out for your betterment, I hate to say it, but you are dead wrong. They love to use us as guinea pigs. And the sad part is, a lot of people think, oh, well, the government will take care of me because they're handing out welfare checks and Obamacare, obviously, because they haven't told us 100 million lies about Obamacare, but yet it turned out to be one of the worst disasters ever. But don't worry, the government is your friend. They're looking out for you and they want to take care of you. Well, today I want to show you that that's not necessarily true. I'm sure to aspects and points parts they do to some extent because they have to, but there is also an evil, just heinous side to the government of where they are conducting experiments on the people. And they usually deny it until, I don't know, 50, 60 years later, and then they'll admit it. But let's move on. All right, now one of the first ones that I'm going to talk about is Project Chatter. Now, these are going to be in all different time frames because I'm not doing them in order, but different years, different aspects. Anyway, Project Chatter was a U.S. Navy drug testing program that began in the fall of 1947. The program focused on the identification and testing of drugs for use in interrogations and in the recruitment of agents. The research included laboratory experiments on both animals and human subjects involving these particular drugs in order to determine their speech-inducing qualities. Human test subjects were rounded up from mental health institutions and forced to take part in the experiment regardless of their will. Now, I'm going to show you the actual document. There we go. Here is the government document on, look at that, Project Chatter. And what does it do? It says right here exactly what I just read to you. The research included laboratory experiments on both animal and human subjects. So this is the actual documentation. If you want to look at it, if you want to read it, here's your link. But let's move on. But here is the actual documentation. Notice this was done September 9th, 1951. This is just the investigation. But anyway, this entire document is about what they did, their test subjects, and the like. Anyway, it's there because they have to list it. Now, after they supposedly closed Project Chatter, the one we just saw, they opened up Project Bluebird, which is just kind of an offshoot of it, if you will. It deliberately created multiple personalities in patients. Now, this was obviously, it began in 1949, which was a little bit before Project Chatter, which was in 1947. And the document reads 1951 because that's when they made it open to the public. Anyhow, it deliberately created multiple personalities in patients. Kind of sounds similar to the MKULTRA, which we're going to get into a minute, that a lot of our celebrities are involved in today. But experimentation was conducted on psychiatrics to create amnesia, new identities, hypnotic access codes, and new memories in the minds of experimental subjects. Wow. Create new memories. These people were also rounded up from mental institutions and hospitals to be used as test subjects. Here is where we have the official Project Bluebird document. You can go through this. Here's your link if you want to check it out. And it goes through all information on Bluebird and some of the information they did. Anyhow, there it is. Whoops. All right, now let's move on. Project Artichoke. Project Artichoke was a CIA project that researched the interrogation methods that arose from Project Bluebird in 1951. It was run by the CIA's Office of Scientific Intelligence. This project studied hypnosis, forced morphine addiction, and the use of other chemicals to produce more amnesia and other vulnerable states in subjects. Artichoke was an official mind control program. Artichoke eventually morphed into what we know as MKUltra. MKUltra was birthed in 1953. The program was a human research operation experimenting in the behavioral engineering of human through the CIA's Scientific Intelligence Division. It used numerous methodologies to manipulate people's mental states and alter brain functions, including, these are the things they used: radiation, electroshock, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, verbal and sexual abuse, the administration of LSDs and other drugs, as well as various forms of torture. Do you see how each one of these kind of progressed? You had Project Chatter, that they experimented just a little bit with just drugs, and you have Bluebird that kind of went into hypnosis and drugs, and then you have Project Artichoke, which added mind control, and then you have MKUltra with all of the above. Do you see the progression? And then you have it including really, really crazy things. And this is not a conspiracy theory, people. These are conspiracy facts. And I'm going to show you the actual documentation. But either way, also, just like MKUltra, they used unwilling test subjects in both the US and Canada, and the program is still alive today, although some want to deny it. Now, it would also cause people to forget their memory. They would have memory loss. They would forget how to talk and things like that. These are other side effects of MKUltra, but let's check out the government documentation. Here we go. Project MKUltra, the CIA's program of research and in behavioral modification. This is from the New York Times, but hey, it's a conspiracy theory, right? My rear end. I'd say the other word, but I'm not going to go there. Anyway, this is committees that worked on it, I guess, if you will, but let's keep going. I just want to show you, I mean, I don't want to read through this whole thing because it's a lot of pages at this moment, but I would love to go through it sometime or advise you on it. But nonetheless, this is the actual documentation where they say it's a conspiracy theory, yet it's right here. So anyhow, that's it. And you can look through it at some point if you like. And real quick, here's just more of the document. I just scrolled down to about page 120 and MKUltra. This is the actual information. The first was a letter and gathering information on it, but this is all about what they did. As you can tell, some of it is blacked out anyway because they don't want you to know all the information. Anyhow. Now let's get into the Monarch program, which was basically a sub-program of MKUltra. This is, again, still around today, and it's a form of mind control that creates a mind control slave by utilizing human brain trauma responsive disassociation to create a form of multiple personality disorder, where various triggers or word triggers or things like that can cause slave personalities in the particular people. And they have different stages. They have an alpha stage, a beta stage, a delta stage, a theta stage, an omega, and a gamma. These are different types of programming, if you will. If you want, you can pause and read about these, but I don't want to get into them too much. I just want to show you what the government is doing. But some people who are currently under the MKUltra or the Monarch program, Miley Cyrus, Britney Spears, just tons of people, Nicki Minaj. There's a lot of them. And usually you look for the Monarch butterfly and you're good to go. But that just kind of gives you an idea. But other individuals that can be, there's ones that can be programmed to shoot, with a particular word or a program code. That's your omega, but it can include lone gunmen, serial killers, celebrities I just mentioned, and a lot more: journalists, news investigators, military lawmen, and obviously government officials. But a lot of times their sign can be that monarch butterfly. All right, but these are not the only tests that our government has done on humans and their own people or other people. Here's another particular link, and I'll leave a link, but mustard gas tests on soldiers was another one. A bioweapon research intensified in the 1940s. Officials also began testing its repercussions and effects on the army people themselves. So they tested mustard gas on soldiers. Basically, they wanted to understand the effects of bioweapons. And they were known to have sprayed mustard gas and other skin-burning, lung-ruining chemicals like lewisite on soldiers without their consent and knowledge. This is a true thing. And they would do similar to what they did in Nazi Germany with the gas chambers. They would put them in a chamber and light it up with this stuff just to understand the effects of mustard gas. And here it just gets into some of those, some of those aspects. All right, here's another one. The U.S. gives immunity to an involuntary surgeon monster. This man, Dr. Shiro Aishi, if I'm saying that wrong, I don't know, but he carried out some of the most violent human experimentation on tens of thousands during the Second Sino-Japanese War and World War II. And the government gives this man, what do they grant him? Immunity. I mean, come on. And he was known for doing the vivisection techniques, basically without any anesthesia on human prisoners. Basically, let's perform surgery on these people without giving them any anesthetic. And he often did it on animals and the like. And there's a really sick video here, and I'll leave a link for you. But it was too disturbing for me to watch anyway. But he was also known to do these same experiments. He would force pregnant women to abort their babies. But just a sick man, and they gave him immunity. All right, here's one that they're still doing today that they always deny, and it's chemical sprays on where? American cities. This is your chemtrails, people, and it's still happening today. I hate it when people try to say that chemtrails do not exist. It's just ignorance, pure ignorance. There's so many people that have come out from, even at the UN. Anyhow, the Army, CIA, and government are conducting a series of warfare simulations on American cities to see how the effects would play out in the event of an actual chemical attack. Now, in these particular chemtrails that they're spraying, they do experiments. And whether you want to believe that or not is up to you. But let me tell you something. I know without a doubt that these are going on. I have a friend who was told by a top agent and a top military personnel in Arizona that they were going to be spraying a particular strain of the flu that day because they wanted to study the effects on the population. They did this actually in the Phoenix area. Okay, so I know that these chemtrails do exist, and I know that they're going on. And you know what? You don't have to believe that, but it doesn't matter because I know that they're real, and I know a lot of you out there do understand that they're real. But here are some of the other things that they have conducted, and these are just the ones that we know about because they didn't tell us about the chemtrail attack with the flu strain in Arizona, but yet these are ones that we know about. Anyway, they have been known to release the whooping cough virus in Tampa Bay using boats, and so caused a whooping cough epidemic. 12 people died because they want to study the effects. The Navy sprayed San Francisco with bacterial pathogens, and in consequence, many citizens developed pneumonia. Upon Savannah, Georgia, and Avon Park, Florida, the Army released millions of mosquitoes in hopes that they would spread yellow fever and dung fever. The swarm left Americans struggling with fever, typhoid, respiratory problems, and the worst, stillborn children. Even worse, that after the swarm, the Army came in disguise as public health workers. Aren't they wonderful? Their secret intention the entire time they were giving aid to the victims was to study and chart the long-term effects of the illness they were suffering. Well, it just doesn't happen, and our government's out for our benefit, right? Wrong. Here's another one. And I'm going to expand on this just a little bit, but U.S. infects Guatemalans with STDs. Let me show you this quick video clip.
At Wellesley College, what she found is that in the 1940s, doctors at the U.S. Public Health Service, a part of the U.S. government, We're interested in studying syphilis and penicillin. They had penicillin. They weren't quite sure how well it worked. It was in the early days of penicillin. So they went to Guatemala and they found some prostitutes with syphilis, and they arranged for the prostitutes to have sex with prisoners in jail and also with patients who were in a mental hospital to infect those patients and then give them penicillin to see if it worked. Now, sometimes the patients didn't get sick. So what they did was and this is really horrible, they took their arms and their penises and would abrade them, would sort of rough them up and pour the bacteria onto that skin. And then when that didn't work, they would sometimes just inoculate into the spine. They would do a spinal puncture and give the syphilis that way. And then they would try the penicillin to see how it worked. And let me read a little bit from the apology. It's just coming, today.
This is the U.S. government we're talking about.
Correct.
Human guinea pigs.
Human guinea pigs,
All right.
sponsored by the U.S. government. So here's the apology.
All right. And that's coming from the CNN, Communist News Network. No, I'm just kidding. That's not what it means, but I can, some might agree. Anyway, U.S. infects Guatemalans with STD. Notice that this happened in the 1940s. Let me see. Today is 2014. It took how many years for the government to come clean and actually issue an apology for this? Okay, and we're talking, 60, 70, some odd years later, and here they are coming out of the closet with this erroneous act that they performed. But don't worry, your government means you well. Just don't look through this door or that door. But they knowingly put syphilis on people, on Guatemalans. It's just sad. But another thing that they did in the 1940s that I want to mention really quick, let's go there. Actually, 1930s and 1940s. We'll start in 1931. Dr. Cornelius Rhodes, he was part of the Rockefeller Institute for Medical Investigation. He infects human subjects with cancer cells. And that happened on American soldiers and civilian hospital patients. Just sad. 1932, here's another one. Another study begins where 200 African American men were diagnosed with syphilis and denied treatment. All of who died just because they wanted to look at the results of what syphilis would do. And their families were never informed that they could have been treated. 1935, and this is another syphilis thing. They did it here, and then obviously they did this, affecting the Guatemalans with the syphilis and things. Back to this. In 1935, the pellagra incident. After millions of individuals died from pellagra over a span of 2 decades, the U.S. Public Health Service finally acts to stem the disease. The director admits it had known for at least 20 years that pellagra is caused by a niacin deficiency, but failed to act on it. Because I believe it was occurring within a poverty-stricken Black population. So that's just sad. It's sad, racist and sad. Here's some more. 1940, 400 prisoners in Chicago are infected with malaria in order to study the effects of new and experimental drugs to quote unquote combat the disease. To combat it, let's infect people. That's just a nice thing to do, isn't it? 1942, Chemical Warfare Service begins the mustard gas. That's the one that I told you about a little bit ago. 1943, in response to Japan's full-scale germ warfare, the U.S. began research on biological weapons. In 1944, U.S. Navy uses human subjects to test gas masks and clothing. They were locked in gas chambers. That's the other one I told you about. 1945, Project Paperclip. We talked about that. 1945, Project F is implemented by the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission. This is the most extensive study of health effects of, check that out. Health effects of what? What? Whoa, but wait, we have that in our water. Isn't fluoride in our water? Hey, don't worry. That's for your teeth, okay? It has nothing to do with just turn the other cheek on that anyway. This is the most extensive U.S. study of health effects of fluoride, which was the key chemical component in atomic bomb production. One of the most toxic chemicals known to man, fluoride, it is found, causes marked adverse effects on the chemical nervous system, but much of the information is squelched in the name of national security because of fears of lawsuits would undermine the full-scale production of the atom bombs. Hey, but don't worry, fluoride is just safe. They are not using it for experimentation. Wink, wink. Aren't they sweet? Ugh. 1946, patients in VA hospitals are used as guinea pigs for medical experiments. You know, their own warriors who fought for this country, and they experiment on them. 1947, Colonel E. Kirkpatrick of the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission issues a secret document stating that the agency will begin administering intravenous doses of radioactive substances to human subjects. Here's another one, injecting prisoners with Agent Orange. This is horrible. I want to show you this quick video. This man was affected by it.
Hay cosas que el gobierno no reconoce. Hay cosas que experimentos que se hacen que el gobierno no dice nada. Eso es todo. ¿Y qué esperanza tienes tú si la prueba la tienen ellos, pero también tienen ellos la decisión de reconocer o no reconocer? ¿Qué esperanza tienes tú? La esperanza es que algún día haya justicia. Por eso es que le escribí al presidente Obama diciendo que antes de morir que quería justicia.
All right, here's another video, and I'm going to try to cut it short, but it's on Agent Orange too.
I have, together with my wife and some friends, visited Vietnam. As a journalist, we were invited to the Hoa Binh Hospital in Saigon, where you can see children affected by Agent Orange. It is the code name for a powerful herbicide used by the U.S. military during the Vietnam War. An estimated 80,000 acres of Agent Orange were deployed in South Vietnam. Studies of populations highly exposed to Agent Orange indicate increased risk of various types of genetic defects. Since the 1980s, several lawsuits have been filed against the companies which produced Agent Orange. During the Vietnam War between 1962 and 71, the United States military sprayed 77 million liters in South Vietnam as part of a defoliant program to deny cover for their Vietnamese opponents. According to Vietnam Ministry of Foreign Affairs, there are still 4.8 million Vietnamese people to be victims of Agent Orange.
All right, so there's some, and here's some of the other birth defects in the video. And this is going on to the third generation in Vietnam. This is to the third generation. So those people that had it, it's been passing on to their kids, just on and on. And you can see they have similar issues, all because of Agent Orange. It's just sad. It's really heartbreaking. All right, here's some more. The CIA in 1947 begins its study of LSD as a potential weapon for American intelligence. Human subjects were used without their knowledge, both civilian and military. 1950, Department of Defense begins plans to detonate nuclear weapons in desert areas and monitored the downwind residents for medical problems. Hey, isn't that great? In 1950, an experiment to determine how susceptible an American city would be to biological attack. The U.S. Navy sprays a cloud of bacteria from ships over San Francisco. 1951, the Department of Defense begins open-air testing disease-producing bacteria and viruses. 1953, the military releases clouds of zinc cadmium sulfide gas over Winnipeg, St. Louis, Minneapolis, Fort Wayne, and the Monarch River in Maryland. Their intent is to determine how efficiently they could disperse chemical agents. Now, this goes on and on and on. We talked about MKULTRA. The CIA performed tests tests its ability to infect human population with biological agents over Tampa, Florida. Army Chemical Corps continues their LSD research. More than 1,000 Americans participate in the tests. In 1956, it releases the mosquitoes. We talked about that one and the LSD. The CIA and Department of Defense begin Project MK Search, a program to develop a capable to manipulate human behavior through the mind-altering drugs, kind of similar to MKUltra. That's the Agent Orange that we talked about. The CIA Department of Defense, that's the MKUltra. This one's crazy. In 1968, CIA experiments with the possibility of poisoning drinking water by injecting chemicals into the water supply of the FDA in Washington, D.C. They don't poison our water. Fluoride's safe. Don't worry. Dr. Robin McMahon of the Department of Defense requests Congress $10 million to develop within 5 to 10 years a synthetic biological agent to which no immunity exists. Scary. And I'm skipping over some of these, but in 1977, Senate hearing on health and scientific research confirmed that 239 popular areas had been contaminated with what biological agents between 1949 and 1969? Probably why we have increased rates of all kinds of crap, but San Francisco, Washington, D.C., Key West, Panama City, Minneapolis, and St. Louis were of the ones infected. Experimental hepatitis B vaccine trials. Oh, but they don't put anything in the vaccine. Don't worry. Conducted by the CDC begin in New York, LA, San Francisco. Ads for research subjects specifically ask for promiscuous homosexual men. Now they're targeting people groups. In 1981, first cases of AIDS are confirmed in homosexual men in New York. LA, San Francisco, triggering speculation that AIDS may have been introduced by what? The hepatitis B vaccine. No way. AIDS just came about because a man had sex with a monkey, right? No, I don't know. Think about it. Think about what they did in 1978 and only 3 years, 78, 79, 80, 81, 3, let me get my math right. 3 years later, oh, we got AIDS case. And who are they in? Well, but the homosexual men, probably the same homosexual men that got the Hep V vaccine. But hey, vaccinate your children because it's safe, for crying out loud. Get your vaccine. Please don't. Anyway, according to the journal Science, fatal sheep virus, they spread out in 1986. HIV and VISNA are highly similar and share the same elements except for a small segment, yada, yada, where there is no immunity to that. Let's go on. Here's another one, Operation Midnight Climax. This is a government experiment that has completely different results, so be careful what you look for. But Operation Midnight Climax involved safe houses, sure, in New York and San Francisco, built for the sole purpose to study what LSD affects on non-consenting individuals. But in order to lure the individuals, the CIA made these safe houses out to be, wait for it, brothels. A brothel. Prostitutes on the CIA payroll. Yes. Don't believe it? Check it out. Look into it. Anyhow, but they lure in their clients back into these houses, and instead of having sex, they dosed them with the most famous LSD, and also involved extensive use of marijuana. So there you go. There is just more conducting of the government. Fallout radiation on unsuspected Pacific territories. That's another one. Let's go back here. In 1987, Department of Defense admits that despite a treaty banning research and development of biological agents, it continues to operate research facility at 127 facilities and universities around the nation. Hey, they're not doing that. Close your eyes. In 1919, more than 1,500 6-month-old Black and Hispanic babies in LA are given experimental measles vaccines that had never been licensed for use in the U.S. The CDC later admitted that parents were never informed that the vaccine being injected to their children was Oh, it's just an experiment. In 1994, with a technique called gene tracking. Ooh. This particular medical scientist discovers that many returning Desert Storm veterans are infected with an altered strain of Mytocyplasm incognitus. If I'm saying that wrong, I apologize. A microbe commonly used in the production of biological weapons. Incorporated into its molecular structure is 40% of the HIV protein code, indicating that it was, of course, man-made. Senator Rockefeller. Oh, he's a nice guy. Issues a report revealing that for at least 50 years, the Department of Defense have used hundreds of thousands of military personnel on human experiments and for intentional exposures to dangerous substances, including mustard and nerve gas, ionized radiation, psychochemicals, hallucinogens, and drugs. In the Gulf, 1995, U.S. government admits that it offered Japanese war criminals and scientists who had performed human medical experiments salaries and an immunity from prosecution in exchange for biological war research. Sorry, I'm trying to go quick so I don't keep you too long. In 95, there's just more biological agents. In 96, people in Desert Storm exposed to chemical agents. In 97, and my husband was in chemical Desert Storm, just horrible. 97, 88 members of Congress signed a letter demanding investigation into bioweapons and the Gulf syndrome. This particular information can be found here. The history, and it's a great research study, but a history of U.S. secret human experimentation, and I'll leave a link. Anyhow, there are tons and tons and tons and tons and tons more. There's video, there's more paper information on it, but I just want to make you aware. Unethical human experimentation in the U.S. Here's the Wikipedia link. It talks about surgical experiments, disease and biological warfare. This is from our government, but human radiation, radioactive iodine experiments, uranium experiments, plutonium experiments, and experiments involving radioactivity, fallout research, all done on citizens, But hey, you know, and torture. Ooh, we don't do that here in the U.S., do we? Waterboarding? No. Anyhow, I just want to close with this. I want you to be, and I know many of you are awake, but I want to wake up the half that's not awake too. So my heart is, be aware, and the thing is, remember that a lot of the times the government doesn't admit to what they're doing until years and years and years and years later. So what experiments are they doing right now? They're doing fluoride, they're doing chemtrails, we have Fukushima, and God only knows the other half. We have MKULTRA, the Monarch program, all going on right now. And that's not to mention a ton others. I'm just scraping the surface here, but remember that the government does not reveal these projects that they're doing until about 40 to 50 years later, when the population doesn't care about it anymore. But understand that you're being experimented on just like people 40, 50 years ago, 20 years ago. It's no different. They haven't changed. They're the same people. So just be aware to what's going on. All right. Love you guys and have a blessed week, but don't fear. God is good. Amen.